Chancellor Gates, Rector Poston, President Rowe, distinguished faculty, and the graduating class of 2025, and your families who've stood by you now in the rain, congratulations. What an amazing day for you. This is about you. What an amazing day. And this is a profound honor that you've bestowed upon me. I mean, honestly, I'm not exactly speechless because I got a speech to give, even though it's wet now. But here's the thing, right? When they ask you to do this, they send you a list of people who've spoken, people who've got honorary degrees. It's a real flex move. I don't want to say I'm humbled, but I am intimidated. I am really intimidated by this. So I called President Rowe and I asked her, what should I do? And she said, two things: be brief, be funny. So, to be brief, I'm only going to give you one bit of advice today, something that I have found immensely useful in my own life. And this is it. Write your own story. Write your own story. Don't chase your dreams. The funny bit, my big dream was killed by a pair of giant pandas. It's a true story. I grew up in Africa, and my dream was to study African wildlife. So I came to the United States for graduate school to study the African cheetah. And I'd spent my first 2 years of graduate school doing all the work, taking classes, getting funding, getting my research proposal together. And the last step, I was in Washington, D.C., waiting for my research permit to come through from the Namibian embassy when I got a message. It was from my advisor to call him. So I go down to a payphone. We used to carry pockets full of change back then. Get on the payphone, and it's my advisor on the other end. It's a guy named Michael Soule, who is the father of conservation biology. And Michael says, your project has been canceled. Come back. I'm in shock. Why? The pandas. It's because of the pandas. The line goes dead. I have no more coins. Turns out that my research was being funded by the San Diego Zoo, who in turn was getting funding from the US Fish and Wildlife Service. At the same time, the San Diego Zoo was trying to import 2 pandas to exhibit at the zoo. They were giving the Chinese government $1 million for this. And environmental groups raised a bit of a fuss. They were worried that the Chinese were going to use that money to go catch more pandas to send to zoos. Now, that's not what they did. I eventually went to China. I saw what they were doing with their panda program. But at the time, it was a big deal. And the Secretary of Interior, Secretary Bruce Babbitt, stepped in and called for an investigation. My project that had nothing to do with this was just caught in the crossfire. So with a student visa and time ticking on the clock, I was out of luck. So I go to my advisor and I say, what do I do? And he says, you got to find something local and you got to find something abundant that no one really cares about. Why don't you study gophers? So folks, for those of you who don't know, a gopher is a fossorial rodent. It's basically a giant rat that lives underground, right? I knew nothing about gophers, and I told him that. So he gave me a VHS cassette tape and said, watch this. It'll teach you everything you need to know about catching gophers. That turned out to be Bill Murray's movie. It's a true story. That turned out to be Bill Murray's movie, Caddyshack, which is a great movie, by the way. And with that was gone my dream of sitting on top of a Land Rover in khakis with my binoculars, maybe sipping a gin and tonic at sunset, watching a big cat walk across the African savannah. Instead, I spend the next 3 years of my life on my hands and knees, digging in the California dirt. Not the coastline of California with the pounding surf and sea otters and sea lions, not the mountains with its tall redwood trees and bears. No, I was banished to the agricultural heartland, the Central Valley of California, laser leveled, hot, dry, very conservative. So that's where I went. It's biologically the least interesting place in the state. So I got myself a pickup truck. I got myself an Australian Shepherd. Dogs are great icebreakers. And I would drive up to ranchers and farmers, knock on their door, and ask whether I could catch gophers on their land. After they get off the shock, they invite me in. And over time, I got to know these folks. Now, I wouldn't tell them that at night I would come back and release the gophers on their land. It was a catch and release study, but I left that part aside. And this is what I learned. I learned that these were folks just like me. They cared about the land, deeply cared about the land. They would talk about drought. They would talk about the streams drying up. They would talk about the frost being late, the fire season. They were deeply worried about what they were seeing. And even though we didn't call it climate change back then, that's what they were feeling. And they were nervous. They were worried about what they were going to have to pass on to their kids. And I realized that even though we both cared about the same thing, the only difference was that we were speaking two different languages. I was speaking a language of love. I love nature. I love the spring wildflowers. They were speaking in a language of value. Two sides of the same coin. That moment is seared in my memory. It stuck with me, and it now forms the basis of everything we do at Conservation International. Love is a powerful emotion, but it's not enough to save the world. To do that, you also need value. And that principle is built into our work. Demonstrate that clean water comes from intact hillsides, that marine protected areas really are about fish banks for communities, that protecting mangroves or restoring mangroves is really about creating coastal resilience and sequestering carbon, that climate change is really about supply chains for commodities. Once you can demonstrate that at scale, you can create a perpetual flywheel. You can link production of the things we need to protection of nature. Simply put, if we cannot show that a tree is worth more alive than dead, we'll continue to cut down trees. That moment in graduate school that killed my dream and yet fundamentally shaped my career was not apparent to me in that moment. The death of my dream very much was. What do you think happens to our dreams? As far as I can say, there's only three things. For most of us, we sort of set them aside and get on with it. For others, we hold on to these dreams much too hard, hoping, waiting, and we live a life of recrimination and mild disappointment. Or, very, very few of us actually achieve our dreams. Tends to be sort of elite athletes. The data on this is actually shocking. Like 6% of people will actually achieve their dreams, or say that they'll achieve their dreams. And when you talk to elite athletes who actually achieve these things, what do you get? I mean, take Michael Phelps, right? Winningest athlete out there. This guy dominated the sports of swimming. If Michael Phelps' achievements were divided into two people, it would rank number 1 and number 2 in the world. He wins 23 Olympic medals, and then what does he say? He says, I'm living a dream come true, I'm at the top of the mountain, and then you're like, what the hell am I supposed to do now? Who am I? Then he goes into a period of well-publicized depression. So if following your dreams is really a poor strategy for life, what is a better strategy? My saving grace, what worked for me, is seeing my life as a story. Actually, even this moment when we were thinking, could this be canceled? Could thunder showers happen? I mean, my speech might disappear, something I've worked on for some hours. I thought, well, look, that's actually a piece of the story. Years from now, I'll look back on it, and it'll be a pivotal point, and I'll make something out of it, right? That idea of seeing your life as a story and placing yourself in the story, that's a really great skill. And the good thing is, you can all do it. You all did it as kids. I have a 5-year-old daughter. She's always in character. Sometimes she's Moana, sometimes she's like Elsa from Frozen, sometimes she's like a chef from Hell's Kitchen, sometimes, more recently, she's like a really sadistic doctor who'd be perfect in the pit, right? She's always in character. It's how she makes sense of the world. And as an adult, it's an indispensable skill. At 20, you can take a year off and go be a fishing guide in Montana. Later in life, not so much. At 20, I wanted to be an astronaut. Now, that's impossible. Unless I go like the Katy Perry route or something like that, right? But basically, that's out. As you get older, your chapters become far more prescribed, far more bound by what's in front of you than what's behind you. And as you get later in life, your life basically writes itself. By the end of your life, you're on ChatGPT. It's basically on autopilot. It's writing itself. That's how the book ends. And these later years are crucial years. You're at the height of your power. You have influence. You have responsibility. It's really important. The last third of your book, right? The last third of your book better be great. So who are you? Are you an adventurer? Are you an explorer, a rogue, a statesman? Are you a teacher, a magician, a spy? Are you Indiana Jones? A hero, an anti-hero, an underdog, a survivor, a chameleon? Are you a scientist? President Rowe calls this self-sensing. It allows you to look at the past to make sense of the present and to navigate uncertainties. It allows you to accept success and failure. Am I going to get to give the speech, or is it going to rain me out? With equal measure, and just see life as boulders or bridges, obstacles or pathways that you navigate. And by recasting past events as turning points, it lays down the markers of your life. Remember, it's not a turning point until you identify it as such. You know that story I told you about my grad school days? That's only a turning point when I retell it. Otherwise, it's just kind of a sad story of disappointment and desperation, right? And this leads to my most important insight. As these pivotal moments become clear, they help you write your next chapter. Chapters that become more important as you get older. Graduates, friends, we live in difficult times. Your generation will confront the worst, and you will have the opportunity to do the most. And we all really hope that you are a great generation. We need your creativity. We need your skills. We need your decency. We need your commitment to healing our planet. Income inequality rivals the time of kings. Climate change today imposes a deadline on civilization that no amount of magical thinking will erase. Physics simply won't allow it. It is understandable for you to be anxious about your future. The thrill of freedom must be now tempered with responsibility. My best advice is this: leave your dreams in your bed. Don't chase your dreams. Write your story, and I promise you, you will be so proud of the ending. Congratulations, good luck, and thank you.